The implementation of AB5 in California has created so many messes on so many levels, it's hard to keep track of them all. At Smart Trucking, we are particularly concerned about the mess that it has created for lease operators and how their carriers are going to compensate them financially for this. Hopping from carrier to carrier costs you money because of the downtime involved. Why not go with a really good carrier that you'll be happy with and you want to stay with? I recommend GP Transco. They're an honest, transparent company. They don't micromanage their drivers. They've got great equipment, great pay. Check them out at gptransco.com. Thousands of lease operators and their families will be in serious financial trouble because of this. Now, the fair thing, obviously, to do is for the carriers that lease them the trucks to buy these trucks back and make them whole financially, reimburse them financially for the fuel and the payments and stuff that they've made. But there are problems with that. And the number one problem is trucking companies don't like to pay out money. They don't like to lose money. So all sorts of carriers won't even be considering that route. The second problem is that the courts have said that AB5 will now be retroactive back to 2020. So when do you do the math from? Back to when the truck was worth something more in 2020 than it is now in 22? How are you going to calculate how much fuel has been spent since 2020, the payments that have been made? All sorts of problems are created now because of this backdating of AB5 to 2020, and we've only got the CTA and the ATA for this mess, this particular mess, and it's going to take a building full of Philadelphia lawyers and accountants to figure all that out. Some carriers, in an effort to dodge their financial responsibility, will suggest that all their lease operators move out of state so they'll be legal in the next state over and they're not operating in California. And I think that's a completely ridiculous suggestion, because how many lease operators want to uproot their families and move them to an entirely different state? And who's going to pay for that move? The carriers? Oh, they won't want to pay for that. And the other problem is there's no guarantee once they move to another state that the carrier will keep them. My concern is here that through all this financial juggling, at the end of the day, these lease operators will come out and get the short end of the stick financially. And I have a real problem with that. Carriers have known for 2 years, at least 2.5 years actually, that there was a really good chance, a 50-50 chance of AB5 becoming law. Yet all sorts of these carriers continued to operate their lease operators and run them, and just creating and compounding the problem and making the financial mess even worse. And I think the carriers need to make sure that their lease operators are made whole financially and treated properly and accordingly. And remember, we're talking about, I know this is going to be a tough deal for carriers to swallow, but we're talking about families here. And I strongly recommend that the carriers do the right thing by these people and make them financially whole and not have them suffer the loss. I think the carriers, it's going to hurt, but I think the carriers have to dig deep into their own pockets to make this situation right with their lease operators. This lease operator program and this AB5 is a huge mess, but it's a mess that the carriers created more than 20 years ago. I think the onus is on them to correct the problem and make it right, and not make these lease operators suffer. Take care, keep the rubber side down. Good luck to all you lease operators out there in California. We'll see you on the backhaul.